Hello, and welcome to Fractured Space. My name is Matilius258, and this is a review of the USR Destroyer. The USR Destroyer is a heavy attack ship kind of deal. 7,200 credit XP to unlock, 90,000 credits to purchase. Level 7 attack, level 8 defense, level 5 utility. Base hull strength of 13,500 and initial max speed of 325 meters per second. So, initial thoughts before I get into the full-out review of the thing are mainly thoughts of concern. The USR Destroyer is actually based off of the flagship. It's in fact a sister ship. And common differences between the USR Destroyer and the USR flagship is the flagship has more health, but is a closer range type ship. The Destroyer has less health, but it has longer range guns. It's also slower, believe it or not. So, one of my main fears that I have with the Destroyer compared to the flagship is, will I like it? Because I hate the flagship. Watch my review and you'll know why. I stand by it. I hate the thing. I just don't like playing with it. Personal preference, by the way. But anyway, the Destroyer. So yeah, that's just my initial fears I wanted to make clear. And, believe it or not, doesn't carry over as much as I thought it would. In fact, I share a love-hate with the Destroyer. So, let's see what it actually gets. Fortunately, you don't have to research anything, so everything comes stock. So, to live up to its 7 attack possibility damage potential rating, is its first main weapon system, the cannons. The cannons have a maximum range of 25,000 meters with an optimum range of 15,000 meters. Each shot does 60 damage and has a base cooldown of 1.5 seconds. Practical use of the gun is, however, different. For one, it doesn't shoot 4, it actually shoots a 6 shot volley, each doing 60, so you can get anything between 250 to 300 damage per volley. I'm putting it a little bit less due to the chances of each shot actually hitting. So in practical terms, that's your more average likelihood. And of course, this is a fully aimed shot. Another thing is, the volley of 6 is actually a staggered volley, so your cooldown of 1.5 seconds is actually reduced to more about 0.5 seconds. At long range, it is actually quite effective. At short range, it's still decently effective, so long as your guns are trained on the target, which I'll come to in a minute. Your secondary weapon system is the explosive charges. Anyone who's used the flagship will know what these are like. They are, or who has actually been shot by a flagship. They are those blue explosives. They are a shorter range charge, only 15,000 meters. They have a very nice. They have a volley of 5 and a cooldown of 10 seconds. However, it takes about 2 seconds for the volley to be fully fired. Therefore, the cooldown's more or less kind of 8 seconds. Also, they are a much slower shot. If you will see from the canyons, each shot moves at 6,250 meters per second, while these only move at 4,000. Which means that when you're leading a target, which you will have to do in this ship, by the way, you'll have to lead just a little bit extra every few seconds to fire the explosive charges, turn your aim back to where it was originally to proceed to continue using the cannons. Each thing does 50 damage a shot for a total of 250 damage in explosive charges. It also has a burst area of effect radius, which dissipates the damage depending on where you landed the charge in terms of the target. Best just to actually hit the target. Explosives charges can also be used to shoot down missiles, however the likelihood of that actually happening is rather unlikely when using the destroyer. Best just to rely on your point defense. Moving on to the tertiary weapon system, as I wish to call it, is the missile system. Much shorter range compared to what you would assume. It only has a range of 14,000 meters. Each has a volley of 8, and each one does 76 damage. The base cooldown is 20 seconds. If anything, refer to the flagship for its overall use. I say it's a tertiary weapon system because they are indeed quite useful. And if you want, you can argue that the quaternary weapon system is its bombers, but I'll let you deal with that and make your own opinions. So that's the 3.5 main weapon systems that the destroyer has, compared to the usual 2 or average 1 weapon system enjoyed by the rest of the ships in the game. Now, when it comes to its utilities and its rank of 5, you just have one option, and is that jammer. Now, the jammer is a very selective and tactical utility to be used, despite its name. It has unlimited range, so any enemy ship within the lane will be jammed. However, it only jams for 10 seconds, meaning that its uses are rather limited. If anything, the jammer can be used for a very small application of uses. First off, it can be used to spot ships. The little icon that shows that the jammer has been activated and is affecting a ship will display if the ship is not even detected. Second of all, the jammer does eat into the energy, so the E-War ship, the Raven at the moment, will definitely prey on the destroyer, and using the jammer will just make it worse. Third, the jammer is best used when jumping out of a system during a push by your team. If you can jam the targets before you leave the lane, they will be blind for around 10 seconds, depending on the circumstances. They will not know where you jumped, they will not know what is going on at the rest of the map for a few seconds, therefore allowing the rest of your team to approach a target within that small window of opportunity. Practically, however, it more or less acts as a psychological attack, I want to say. It messes with people, but in the end, when it comes to visual line of sight, looking at the map or not looking at the map for 10 seconds doesn't do that much damage, depending on the situation. So, back to the actual ship. What is there about it that I like, and what is there that I don't like about it? Oh, and then flaws, of course. And then, for anybody who is trying to kill the thing, counters. Well, first of all, it is a long-range ship. To an extent. The accuracy of the guns at long range are actually quite admirable. As a stationary target, the long-range cannons can work as a very effective barrage fire type weapon at targets at 25,000 meters away. However, despite that, its main damage potential and application is within that 15,000 meter range. In order for it to be able to use its missiles, its bombers can get there in time. The guns are still accurate at that range, and you can use your plasma charges to maximize damage. What this also means is it means the attack here, the 7, is actually more of a lie. If anything, I would say the attack is actually an 8. The damage potential of the destroyer is far greater than any of the other present ships in the game. I'll get into what the present ships are in a minute. On top of that, when engaging ships at close range, it actually doesn't fare as badly as one might assume. Of course, it really does depend on the ship that you are trying to attack and their position to you. The destroyer's limited range keeps the ship's effective firing to its sides, and that's more or less about it. At the top of the ship and at the bottom of the ship, you lose a lot of your armaments, and depending on where the enemy ship is positioned, you will only be firing one gun. That would be your blind spot behind the ship. If anything, think of it as a sniper kind of deal where getting behind the ship will greatly minimize all damage potential of the ship. Keep in mind that the plasma charges do have some limited ability to compensate, just not as much as the other 5 missing guns would be able to compensate for. So fast, small ships will have a wonderful time getting behind the ship and simply having their way. However, keep in mind, a destroyer will try and compensate for this. They will make it as hard as possible for you to get behind them. As they are long-range engagement ships, you will most likely take damage approaching the ship, if it's a good player who knows what he's doing and is leading his shots well. You can of course compensate in return by flying in 3 dimensions and making it as hard as possible for the enemy ship to therefore hit you. However, when it comes to the small ships, I do wish to make one exception in particular. The USR Brawler, I know for sure, has an unfortunate weakness when dealing with the destroyer. The Brawler's harpoon ability both partially strands the target as well as the ship itself, meaning that if the destroyer pilot, for example, whenever I play, is conscious of a brawler and is allowing the brawler to harpoon him without trying to make sure that the harpoon does not connect, is ready for the brawler's attack. All guns are bearing on the brawler. As it gets closer to the brawler, its flak can be enabled, its missiles become more likely to hit, it can use its point defense, its main weapons plus its plasma charges all become nearly deadly accurate at the range the brawler will be sitting. It will also be stationary, and usually within the firing arc of all 6 guns on either side. Meaning the brawler is one of the few small ships that are likely to be close range engaged with the destroyer that will usually fare worse, if not die, when engaging the destroyer. Other ships will usually have a better time. Now, when it comes to bigger ships, such as dealing with the Xeric Carrier and the Titan Leviathan, the destroyer always comes out on top. When it comes to dealing with presence ships, the destroyer wins when it comes to damage potential. Because of the way the damage is applied by the destroyer, big ships, which equal big targets, are easy for all damage to be applied effectively, straightforwardly, and reliably, meaning you will whittle down their health much, much faster than they can do it to you. Which is ironic considering that the destroyer has a rather small health pool in comparison to the other presence ships. The health is a reflection of its long-range capabilities, meaning that it is in fact one of the easier to kill presence ships. However, I probably need to explain what a presence ship is. A presence ship is a ship in each of the main tech trees, the Xeric, the USR, and the Titans, which demand their place on the battlefield. They are the most damaging, most critical, and most target-worthy ships in the lane. They need to be prioritized for your team in order to take control of the lane. However, this is a concept. Practically, it doesn't always work. In the case of the USR tech tree, it is the sniper, and it is also the destroyer. The Zarek line, it is the carrier, which is where I came in saying conceptually it works, practically it doesn't. And in the Titan's defense, it comes to the Leviathan. That's the present ship model. So when it comes to dealing with the big present ships, the the destroyer will in fact win. So, one of the things I mentioned earlier was that the flagship was one of my despised ships. I hate the thing, I don't like playing with it, I don't have fun. That's the point of the game, to have fun. So, the destroyer being partially based off the flagship was one of my main concerns. And in fact, that is not actually the case. The destroyer I actually do quite like. The long-range capability fixes one of the problems that I had with the flagship. You're a big ship that requires help from your teammates. You have a lot of health, but over time it will slowly be whittled down. You need a corvette, you need a disruptor, you need something that can heal you just a little bit of extra, just to keep you alive. The same thing applies to the brawler, the same thing applies to every ship. But present ships, the flagship, it applies even more so. So when it comes to the destroyer being at a long range, it both negates the need, but at the same time makes it more difficult for your teammates to actually effectively heal you. Which is another problem that I had with the flagship as well. The speed of the thing is frickin' slow. You will always be trying to catch up to your team if you're playing it as a long-range support ship. If you're playing it as a closer-range ship, the likelihood of you being overrun by smaller ships is quite likely. If you don't have any help, you will just simply quickly die. Which was one of the problems I had with the flagship. The problem with the flagship was its main weapon system demanded that you had to play like this. With the destroyer, that's reversed. You don't have to. And that's why I kind of like it. At the same time, I have some of the deficits I get from the flagship. It's an inherent legacy issue. But with the destroyer, there's something to compensate, making it a better ship in my opinion compared to the flagship. Also, it can play like the flagship anyways at closer ranges. Meaning, if anything, it's the flagship plus. Which, for some reason, counterintuitively, I actually quite like. So, that's it for when it comes to the paper stats of the destroyer. I'm going to mention this now. Finding a match, a good match in the destroyer, is actually quite a hard thing to do. Due to the way I play this game and record these videos, I usually play one match before I record, just to get into the hang of the game again, and then proceed to record. Of course, it's usually that one game, when I'm getting into the hang of everything again, that I have an amazing game, where everything is perfectly outlined, and the next game is actually terrible, I don't get to shoot anything, and I can't show the potential of the destroyer. Which is a problem, because its damage potential is quite... it's its selling point, if anything. Hello, and... wait, what? No. I do these separately, so I just... no. Anywho. So, time for a destroyer battle. So, as usual, I begin by going to A, as the destroyer is a long-range ship, if it wants to be. Therefore, A is more suited to its playstyle, or one of its playstyles. So I go to A. The ship is too slow, so I don't even bother trying to make it to the first gas station. I kind of go in a rightish way in order to meet up with them later on. I also deploy my drones so they're ready whenever I need them. So not much really happens for a bit of time, so I'm going to explain a few things. First off, this is not one of the best games I've ever gotten in the Destroyer, and in fact ends with a very embarrassing moment. But getting a good game for the Destroyer apparently seems to be my worst thing. In the course of recording these, I always like to do a warm-up battle using the ship to get into the hang of things again, and then proceed to record. Of course, that doesn't always work out so well for me. A little bit of lag here. And I assist in the first takedown. So, moving on, we get to the second takedown, which I will be assisting with, which is of this venture. Just get to watch how the damage potential and damage application of the Destroyer works. Anywho, so yeah, trying to find a good video to record for this ship, for me, was evil. I guess is the easiest way to describe it. I could not get a good game when I was recording. Whenever I recorded, it was always a terrible game where the odds were stacked so terribly that I could not even attempt to show you anything because you wouldn't learn anything. And that's what you're here for. You're here to learn how to play the ship. So, with that little engagement, I got 3 takedowns. I was just in 3 takedowns. I hope that showed you just how accurate the guns can be, and also the damage potential that the Destroyer can provide for its team. It doesn't need to be up close, and it does excel very well when at long range, as you could see at the very end with the Hunter. The missiles also help, the bombers also help. Keep in mind that I don't actually have my drones up, which I should have that fixed in a second. Or I will look at the map. Come on. There we go. Drones and your point defense slash flak kind of thing are usually the 2 things you need to kind of keep a hang of and make sure you watch the whole time. Drones, just to make sure you have them handy and to make sure they're actually trying to attack something that you know they can actually attack. So don't try to attack drones or defend your ship from drones with the bombers. It just doesn't work. So keeping track of that, and then just keeping track of your application of the point defense, because its barrage is very good at negating any incoming missiles, more so than I think a few other ships I've been playing with recently, so I have to check that, don't quote me. So, here I am, and I'm currently trying to cap this area. I've also just noticed that I am alone, actually, which is annoying. I had a Corvette, but he left, so I'm here to deal with this one hunter all by myself. See, the hunter's playing well. He's getting on top of the Destroyer and behind it in that area. Where he is right now is where kind of represents the more or less blind spot of the Destroyer. Also, with the flak and the direction my flak is going, plus, you know, the incoming fire, I also happened to notice that I was being shot by yet another ship. I did not even see him coming, which is unfortunate, so I die. However, it's the first death, so the respawn timer is pretty short, and I return back to A to enact a kind of defensive measure instead. But as I was going on about, the hunter played really well. When you're countering a destroyer, you need to get behind the thing and into that blind spot. Now, I personally put myself in a position where it's not the best place for me to be able to, I want to say maneuver, but this thing's so slow and just bulky that maneuvering is not something it does well. So, turn, it doesn't even do that very fast. I'll just say move. Just not giving me much area to move and not as much freedom when trying to engage the hunter. Of course, leading up to at the moment right now, you think, oh, you get to engage the same hunter yet again. Oh, nope, he leaves. Which is unfortunate. So, yeah. However, I was eventually joined by another friendly, which is always nice. But before you get your hopes up, he actually leaves again as well. I told you I can't get good games in this ship, or at least I can't get good games that I can record. Because usually whenever I'm in a good game and I realize it, it's like, oh, I was just practicing. I wasn't actually recording, and it's too late by that point to start recording. So, yay! So, there's that. So again, I get left behind. There he goes, jumping off. The Gamma sector is opening up soon, and I am actually thinking about going to Gamma and trying to help out with it. However, I decided against it. I noticed that I had 3 teammates already in Gamma, already practically centered to Gamma, and adding another ship would only open up this entire lane to a sneaky little person. Plus, since I'm in full confidence that my teammates will in fact take G, having the bonus that G will give me will cap this point faster, and give me a slight bonus to my fire rate, which is always nice. So I'm in the mindset at this moment of, if I can get into this place, they can cap that, which they will. I have no doubts about that. Then I can cap this and open up a point to their base. And then something very familiar happens. So I was about to leave. You probably might have noticed my little pop-up real quick. So I deploy everything again and do that full broadside barrage. I also happen to notice that there are other bullets flying around, so I'm joined by some allies, which you would think would mean, oh, you'll survive, but apparently not. So, 2 Ventures, a Destroyer. Was it a Venture as well? I think 2 Ventures? 3 Ventures. A lot of ships. So here, I actually should have gone down, just in case you're wondering, but that was just the fault of me. So, eventually all my friends kind of just bugger out, and I'm here to die. One of the problems... First I'm going to skip it through. Okay, back. One of the problems that the Destroyer actually has is, because it's so big, as all present ships are, trying to retreat in any kind of time or situation through jumping is never going to work. You are too easy to hit and you will most certainly take damage. So I couldn't really move. The only thing I could do is stay and try to do as much damage as possible, which was made mute next to the point that they were right next to. But in the meantime of my death, my team managed to cap that point, so I used it to my advantage, and for the first time in the game, managed to jump to the enemy side. Now, one of the most common strategies at this point for any ship is to jump to the opposite lane, cap that point, jump back, and repeat. It annoys the enemy, they can't do anything, they can't follow you very well. Plus, it gives you your teammates ample time to get into a lane and proceed to jump in and assist. This is usually done with a faster ship, usually with an enforcer, especially because of its cap vulnerability. And I did it with the Destroyer in this match to exemplify how it just doesn't work due to the speed of this ship. It's too slow, it won't get there fast enough. You're just not in the position you need to be. So again, I meet a destroyer, which I actually do manage to kill this time by trying to ascend and get as many guns on the target as possible. And then proceed to jump to the other side, having opened up both lanes for my teammates, and then getting a quick kill. So, my teammates are arriving, I have arrived, we all have a straight shot to the enemy team. So my little strategy did actually in fact pay off, but only because I got really lucky. And they apparently have a Leviathan. So, you get to see what it looks like when two presence ships engage each other. Now, this is where that embarrassing moment comes in. As I mentioned earlier in the review, I said that the Destroyer usually has the best chances and the damage potential to out-damage and out-shoot any other presence ship in the game. And the Leviathan is the presence ship of the Titans. So, technically that would mean you are going to kill them. And this is where my embarrassing comes in, because I managed to stop moving and sit in front, stationary, of a Leviathan long enough for him to use that stupid beam. Also, I was sitting in the middle of a... what's it called? Middle of their base, having to take that damage over time as well. So, and I only started with half health anyways, but these are all excuses. So, I just wanted to point that out, that in most circumstances that are favorable on both sides, or not favorable on both sides, there's no such thing, are equal on both sides, you will usually win. With him, with the ad stacked towards him, he won. But still, yeah. So we win the game, and that's that. So, that is my review on the Destroyer. I hope you enjoyed. It's, in my opinion, the flagship plus. It gets rid of all the problems I had with the flagship, plus or minus a few that stayed over, like a legacy problem. But that's just because it's the same ship, just different armaments. And I guess that's where it comes in. It's the same ship, but with different guns. So, now that I think about it, maybe my problem with the flagship wasn't the entire ship. It was maybe just the guns. No, that's a lie. There were a whole bunch of other problems. What am I talking about? Anyway, hope you enjoyed. I hope to shoot you soon. Have fun whatever you're playing, and have a nice day.